Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am waiting for Magic Eyes. And also one of the hosts.
Call you the Bionic Woman.
Soon. Yeah, theoretically, by the time this is out, I'll have bionic magic eyes. So
Yes. I'm Eric. I'm one of the other hosts. Yes.
And we're going to be talking about the Season 2, Episode 11, Steele Eligible, which aired first January 10th, 1984, and was written by Michael Gleason and Larry Connor and directed by Sheldon Larry. So all the Larrys. So a Larry-heavy episode.
I think this is the first time we've had an episode by Larry Connor. Am I correct?
Yeah, I didn't recognize the name.
Yeah.
It didn't pop for me either, so I don't think I've seen him before, but if I'm wrong, then someone I'm sure will let us know.
Yeah. Do you have any general thoughts on the episode before you get into the details? Because I have a couple of general thoughts.
This one is one of those ones where I forget about some of the details of it until I rewatch it. And there's some moments that I really like, and there's some things that feel off, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Without getting too into it, I think that's my overall general. Why? What are yours?
Well, I think the whole tone of this episode is a little bit different than we've seen in the past. For example,
yeah,
I think this is the first one where we see the murderer and see the murder being committed. I don't think we've seen that in the past. And certainly
Yes, actually, I have that in my notes.
Yeah. And the murders that we have here are a bit more violent, I think, than we generally see in Remington Steele.
Yeah, and this is like you just said, we see the murder like almost right away, but he's not the only one. So it's kind of also a bit of a switcheroo too, because we've got more than just the one killer. So it's a bit different. It is a bit different.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a better way to say it. You did. You found a better way to say it.
And there's another thing, and the reason I had asked earlier about Larry Connor's name coming up, because I didn't recognize it before. We don't have a version of the script that is somewhat close to the actual shooting version. What we have is a very first draft called "And Then There Was Steele," in which Larry Connor's name is the only name that shows up. Michael Gleason's name is not on that version of it. And not only is it substantially different than what we got in the end, it is substantially different in the sense that, how to put this, the characters, without being able to necessarily point to specific things, with one exception, the characters just feel a bit off. And I don't know what Larry Connor's history with the show is, how much he had seen of this show or anything like that. But the original version felt a little bit off. Now, there were some good lines in the original version that carried over into what we got. But there were, I mean, it was, it just, the feel was wrong. The feel was wrong to me. And like I said, with the exception of one thing I can point to specifically, I can't point to anything specific. It's just off. It's like kind of when you just put on brand new glasses with a totally new prescription, something that you're familiar with, I'm sure. And it just,
well,
things
hopefully
are just,
not for long.
Yeah. But when you do it, things just feel off, and you reach for something and, you kind of miss it type. And that's just how it felt. So.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. We'll get into it, but there are some moments where I just feel like you said that. Yeah. So I went with the TV Guide synopsis for this one, which was pretty short and to the point. Someone is killing off the 5 most eligible bachelors in Los Angeles, and one of those I did it. There's you. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try this again. Someone is killing off the 5 most eligible bachelors in Los Angeles, and one of those remaining is Remington. I sounded like one of the recording voices you hear on like the bank when you call. Yes. Your call is important to us, please.
That's why we put you on hold for the next 45 minutes, because you're so important to us.
Yeah. Because you are that important.
That's right. Not important enough that we are hiring somebody to actually take care of you, but we just stand there.
Exactly. Yeah. So the one thing I did notice here, and I got this from Judith's book. According to the book, the episode was originally titled "And Then There Was Steele," and it also says in the book the apartment building used for Arnold Baskin was the exterior used for Alexis Carrington in Colby's penthouse in Dynasty, which is kind of interesting, as well as the name Carstairs. I didn't watch it either, but it just is an interesting tidbit here. The name Carstairs is used a second time here. We saw it with Chrissy in Steele in the News, and now we've got a Chip. I gotta wonder if they're related. They're the most unlucky family on the planet. Things are not going well in the Carstairs clan.
No.
Oh, it's not good. It's not good at all.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, our opening scene, we begin with a man who we later come to know as Dr. Ridley. He's riding a horse through the woods eventually into a stable. And someone is following him. The man addresses Dr. Ridley by name, congratulates him on being one of the 5 most eligible bachelors in LA. Dr. Ridley is surprised. Apparently that wasn't supposed to be announced until the next day. And then the man, as you said, proceeds to stab him to death with some sort of a hooked weapon. And I'm assuming this is one of those things you use to clean a horse hoof? Is that what it is?
I'm not sure if it's that, or I didn't really get a good look at it. If it's that, or if it's like the hook that they use to grab bales of hay with. I couldn't really tell.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Maybe it makes more sense that it was one of those tools to clean out the horse's hooves, because a hay bale hook wouldn't necessarily be readily available in a barn, whereas the horse hoof tool would be.
And I did have in the notes here that this is one of the few times we see the murderer just kill somebody like right up front. First scene in the episode. So this is, definitely a different tone.
Yes.
And not a mystery in the sense that we know exactly who it is. And he's a character actor too, this actor. I've seen him in a few things. So I don't know if you've seen him in anything, but
he looked familiar to me, but probably only because I've seen him in Remington Steele before.
Yeah, that's fair. Sometimes that's true. Like I'll see people in other things and I'm like, I recognize them from Remington Steele. It's such a weird
well, no, I mean,
clue into who
I recognize him because I've seen this episode before. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Okay. I don't know if I've seen him anywhere else.
So, yeah.
I've seen him here multiple times.
We have a scene change. Steele and Laura drive up to the Silver Shadows Country Club, and he announces himself and Laura. The attendant repeats what Steele said, but only changes Laura's name to "and guest."
Hey, she's been upgraded to unidentified woman.
That's what I thought. This is an upgrade. She's now and guest.
Yes, no longer unidentified woman. Yes. Hey, moving up in the world.
Yeah, she's not pleased though. Yeah.
No.
She sarcastically says it's an improvement over unidentified woman, which is how she's usually referred to, and he reminds her, that she created him to stand in the limelight while she works behind in mole-like anonymity.
Okay, that was a little much.
That was rude, yeah. She retorts that she has succeeded admirably as a woman comes around and opens the door to Steele. She has to open her own door. So.
And she seems a bit put out about that, doesn't she?
She does, and I can sort of understand it because they're just treating her like she's not even there. But so
of course you could just argue that it would be demeaning to open a car door for a woman, because it implies that she's helpless and unable to do it for herself.
Yeah, but they opened it for Steele, so
yeah, but he's aged.
Steele's not even the one that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
Whatever.
So they get to the pool, and his overt cheerfulness is clearly lost on her. He points out that it wasn't his idea to be nominated as one of the most eligible bachelors in LA. She snipes back that it's impressive that he is being honored for not being able to make a commitment, which is kind of funny. And he claims he only agreed to do it for publicity, that he doesn't want this shallow adulation, being surrounded by beautiful women and subjected to casual, meaningless sex. And as he says this, a woman walks by in a bikini. And so
how do I look?
He's taken one for the team here, right? Like he's really making a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So I can
throw me into the briar bush, says Bear Rabbit.
Exactly, right. But here's my question, because this is what confuses me.
Okay.
I always hear about these, eligible bachelor, blah blah blah. Now they're not married, but they are in a relationship. They've said as much. We're no longer in this ambiguous space where they may or may not be exclusive. They're in a relationship. So can you still be considered an eligible bachelor if you are in a relationship just because there's not a ring on it?
Well, I guess by somebody's definition, you can be. and well, here's the other thing is if nobody knows they're in a relationship, then to everybody else, he would still be an eligible bachelor.
True, but then I would think, I guess that he says he's taking it for publicity, that he's doing it for publicity, but I don't know, it just seems weird that they're going along with it
Well, in the original version of the script, and then there was Steele, that's exactly the whole purpose of him being among this group of eligible bachelors.
Right.
It was strictly for agency publicity. So that part, apparently, the undertone
then it just
of
seems strange for her to be that angry about it, because if I don't know, and maybe this is one of the things that tonally seems off, but she's really not pleased about this. Like, she's to the point that she's quite angry about the whole situation. And I get that publicity, but at this point, it doesn't feel like they necessarily need that publicity. His name is known enough that she could have theoretically turned this down and not, I don't know.
Well, it occurs to me, just as you're saying this, that it could be a situation like with Remington Steele's top 10 cases, where the magazine approached him and he agreed to do it.
Oh, maybe he agreed to it without her knowing.
Before Laura even knew what was going on. And then she finds out, and then, then she could be understandably upset.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe it would have been nice to know what the circumstances were that led to this, just in the sense that Laura is clearly not pleased that they're here at all. And if they're in a relationship, she would have I think she'd have the footing to be a little ticked off, unless it was her idea that he decided to go through with something like this, because it would be a violation of their relationship as well as, irritating.
Well, he might, if he was approached with this by the magazine and agreed to it without Laura's knowledge, it could have been that he was looking at it both from the standpoint of, well, it's good PR for the agency, plus also not necessarily taking the term eligible bachelor seriously. It's like an honorary college degree. Okay, you're not really an expert in this field of study. You're not really you didn't do the hard work to get that degree in the academic sense. And so it's honorary. You accept it because it's an honor, but does anybody really take it seriously? And that could have been what he was thinking here. Okay, it's an honor. It's an honorary title. The magazine's doing it for their publicity. I can accept it, and the agency gets some publicity out of it, but it's really meaningless. Other than the the shallow adulation, being flung into the world of hot tubs and saunas and surrounded by women and subjected to casual, meaningless sex. I mean, other than that, it's perfectly meaningless.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they go into a reception area. Mariah Taylor approaches them and introduces herself as editor of Upbeat magazine. That is a terrible title for a magazine. I'm just saying. Upbeat. And it has a little exclamation mark at the end, She says it was her job to personally select the finalists. He says he's humbled by the honor, and Mariah tells him that pictures don't do him justice. And Laura sarcastically says that he always looks better under fluorescence. So,
I'm sorry, nobody looks better under fluorescence.
Her snark is in full force. Nobody. It is impossible. I don't care how good looking you are. Sorry, Pierce, but it's just true. Yeah. So yeah, he introduces Laura. Mariah barely looks at her and says that it says a distinct pleasure. Laura holds out her hand, but she's already turned back to Steele, grabs his arm, tells him she needs him. So he says to Laura not to go away and walks off with her. She leads him behind a curtain with the other bachelors and says she wants to give people the benefit of the full introduction, which is quite the introduction, as it turns out.
Yes.
She addresses the crowd, asking them to take a seat, and Laura attempts to do so, but has difficulty because it's like musical chairs. Everybody sits down, and she's kind of left standing around. Yeah, so Mariah tells them, and this is an interesting twist, I think, on this concept, because usually when you have like these date auctions, it's usually the women, right, that are being, quote, auctioned off. So again, we have a little bit of a gender reversal here with this, these are the most eligible bachelors, and trotting them out in front of everybody and what have you. So it's kind of
I don't know. I kind of always figured this was the way it generally went. I wouldn't have imagined, or I can't remember having seen or heard about too many eligible bachelorette auctions. I mean, I know it's big on TV, the Bachelor, the Bachelorette type thing.
No, I mean,
but in terms
I don't mean in terms of like eligible bachelorette, but like just these date auctions.
Yeah,
are typically a thing.
Okay, I
don't know if they ever happen
always
in real
think
life,
of them as.
But I mean,
I don't typically think of them, but when I do think of them, I typically think of them in this way: that the women are bidding on the men. But what do I know? I'm a man, so. I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm just thinking in terms of like the shows and movies that I've seen. I don't know if these things ever happen in real life. I have no idea. But like, looking at various bits of media, I can't think of any off the top of my head. But like, I know I've seen episodes where there's been date auctions and the dating game, and it's usually like a bunch of men trying to get a date with a woman, or 2 or 3 women. Well, on the dating game, I've seen it both directions in pretty much equal proportion. So
that's true.
I don't know. I will concede that I am not an expert in this area because I have never attended nor have been a participant in.
You've never bid on a woman. Auction. Well, that's good.
Yes.
And then, as you pointed out, this became like a pop culture thing with The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. So there are both of those things as reality shows. But I guess this is the sort of pre-Bachelor. She says, ladies, don't be afraid to drool, and men, don't be ashamed for feeling inadequate. Ouch. Although, given the quote-unquote offerings available here, I don't think that's a concern. Because aside from Mr. Steele, the others are, what's the word for it? Duds. They're duds.
Are you talking just in terms of their physical appearance or in terms of their personalities?
I'm talking in general. Just in general. There's not a single appealing thing about any of these men.
Well, I can see how some women might find some of the other guys physically attractive, but in terms of their personality, especially as we get to know them better, it's like... I do have an issue with it all. I do have an issue with it all, which I have in my notes a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now since we're there. I recall high school, college, guys like this, that they were not particularly personable in terms of, they weren't great personalities. They had one thing on their mind, or maybe two, if they were athletes. And those were the ones that the women were drawn to, the girls were drawn to. And guys that had actual personalities and actually had some respect for women as people, as opposed to just arm candy or, horizontal recreational and relaxation partners. They got all the attention. And it's just, it bugged me. It always bugged me. I never understood it. Maybe some women out there can explain it to me, but it's like one of those things where,
I can't explain. There's nothing appealing about any of these guys, looks or personality. They are. Yeah.
Well, I feel somewhat vindicated that at least one person agrees with me.
Yeah, because let's talk about bachelor number one, Chip Carstairs. And as I said, if he's related to Chrissy, bad luck runs in that family, is all I'm saying. Yes. I would not want to be. This is basically this is the red shirt of Remington Steele. Okay, if your last name is Carstairs, you're gonna die. You're done.
Remember that fanfic writers? If you want to kill somebody, name them Carstairs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. She says he is a stockbroker who enjoys volleyball on the beach and long walks in the rain. Okay. His favorite books are The Money Game and The Prophet.
Okay, stop right there. I got to ask because we know what happens. The Prophet. What is the deal with The Prophet?
So I don't know. I looked it up because I didn't know what it was.
I did too.
It's a book of 26 prose poetry fables written in English by the Lebanese-American poet and writer Khalil Gibran. It was originally published in 1923 by Alfred A. Knopf, and it's his best-known work. I don't know.
I found the same kind of information and some biographical information about it and some publishing information about it. But I did not find anything that tells me why was everybody in this show, and presumably the writer, because it was one of the features of the first version of the script before Gleason started writing on it. What was his obsession? What made it so interesting to people? I don't get it.
Here's my guess. I can only guess. And my guess is that they wanted to pick something that was
fashionable,
pseudo-intellectual, somewhat obscure. The kind of thing where if you want to be kind of a jerk and impress somebody, quote unquote, with your music taste, you pick the most obscure artist, and then when they've never heard of it, you're like, oh, what, you don't know so and so? Oh my god, it's just so deep.
You mean the Partridge Family doesn't do it?
No. I'm thinking it has to be something unknown enough that you think you are special for having discovered it, but then it's not really that unknown, and other people have heard of it too, but only the ones that are in
that's the Partridge Family
D-bag club.
I'm sorry.
I don't think the Partridge Family would do it. I think they're trying to appear deep, but because they
without having a clue about what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly don't think any of them have read it, frankly. I think they all picked something that they thought would make them sound important or cultured, I guess.
Here's the thing is, I'm thinking they didn't even write these. I'm thinking Mariah wrote them all.
Maybe, yeah. Mariah wrote it, maybe, yeah, because she seems awfully...
In the original version of the script, that's what happened, was she wrote all of these. And I don't know if my perception of what happens in the episode is somewhat colored by that, or if I kind of already thought that and that just simply reaffirmed that. But to me, it sounds like the kind of thing that a publicist for the event would write. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But it does make sense, though, that his other favorite book would be The Money Game, because that's like investing basics, and he's a stockbroker. So
you get some information from them that's factual, and then you just embellish it.
You add in the profit. Yeah, it could be. But yeah, so those are his two favorite books. And then we've got Bachelor number 2, Arnold Basket. An attorney, Arnold loves sushi for 2, and Ingmar Bergman films. Arnold's favorite books are Winning Through Intimidation and
The Prophet.
No, sorry. The Prophet.
Oh, and for anybody who doesn't know, I
looked up Winning Through Intimidation.
I was going to just say, for anybody who doesn't know, the song that I'm humming is the dating game theme.
The dating game song. Yeah. So I looked up Winning Through Intimidation because I wanted to know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like, this was the description I found. If you've ever found yourself coming out on the short end of the stick, you'll appreciate the rewards that can be yours when you take the initiative in every area of your life. Written by the best-selling author of $1 Million Habits, this business gem explains in candid terms what intimidation is, why you can become intimidated, and how you can avoid the mental lapses that cause you to fall victim to intimidation. So we have a lawyer. Not surprising he would have a book or pick a book, Winning Through Intimidation, because lawyer. Mm-hmm. And then, the prophet, apparently, because he's deep.
Yes.
So you know. So, yeah. Bachelor number 3, Butch Moran. Another Butch. So we're doubling up on names here too, because
Butch Bemis.
Or have we had that yet? Yeah, Butch Bemis.
Butch Bemis.
That
He's coming
yet,
up,
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's coming up. But so Butch is another name that apparently is a one that they like, and they usually pick it for somebody who's what's the word?
More brawn than brain.
Not the smartest. Yeah, I was trying to think of a way of. Yeah, so I have a couple of issues with Butch, and I'll get to them. Butch is the star forward of the LA Owls hockey team. You can't see my face right now, but it is unimpressed with that name for a hockey team. Butch supposedly has a fine sense of humor. I guess you'd have to be to play hockey in LA. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I know at least one Steele watcher who's not going to be happy at me with me for that comment, and I apologize. That's just a little hockey chirping there. His favorite books are Sports Illustrated and The Prophet.
Ooh, surprise.
So here's a question that I have, though, with regards to the LA Owls. Do you think it was just that they couldn't get the rights to use the LA Kings name?
Did the Kings exist back then?
Or, yeah, they did. They did. They're an expansion team. But my question, like, the reason why I'm curious about this is because Gretzky was playing for the Kings in the 80s. Hello? No.
I don't know hockey. I mean, most I know about hockey was when I was a kid, I won some tickets to the Phoenix Roadrunners game. I mean, that's about as much as I know about hockey.
Okay. No, but the reason I was wondering is because as far as I know, there are no LA Owls as like a lower club team.
Yeah, I didn't see anything either.
There's one of two things here, that either it's meant to be a lower club team that doesn't exist, in which case he wouldn't be making $5 million or whatever it was that he was going to get paid to play, unless he was moving up to an NHL team. Or is this supposed to be an NHL team that he's playing for and they just had to change the name for licensing rights?
I'm guessing that it's supposed to be an NHL or professional level team that would be able to justify a multi-million-dollar contract, but not.
Yeah, that would only be the NHL, because you wouldn't get paid that for.
But yes, I don't know that it's necessarily supposed to be, or that it was necessarily changed because of licensing rights. I would imagine they didn't even give that a thought, that they didn't even try to get permission to use the LA Kings or whatever.
It's just weird that they would make up such a weird name like the LA Owls when you've got the LA Kings just laying around.
Mighty Ducks. I mean,
but they were created as a team after that movie came out.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the team name for the Mighty Ducks was not an actual team name, but it was supposed to be a legitimate major hockey league team.
Oh, so, yeah, in the movie, yeah. Well, junior team. They were a junior team.
But yeah, I mean,
but anyway,
TV movies, they do that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah, they play around
because and they don't even think about trying to license it unless they already have some sort of established relationship with that organization, because it's just not worth all the hassle, because you got to get
that's true.
Probably too many people have to sign off on it, and too many people want too much money to do that. I mean, think about all the the Little League baseball teams that are very, they use the names of major league teams, but they can't use the branding of them because of licensing.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, we're the neighborhood Giants. Okay, well, you got San Francisco Giants, yeah, but we don't have the same thing. We just call ourselves Giants. So, yeah, I think it's just, they didn't even try.
Fair enough. So we've got bachelor number 4, Remington Steele. She says he is a private investigator who loves old movies, especially ones concerned with, and this is going to bug me, murder, mystery, and she says mayhem. I don't know why, but every time because I watched this a couple times to type up my notes, and every time I heard her say mayhem, I just wanted to reach through the screen and say mayhem, mayhem. There is an H in there, lady.
Well,
anyway, that might have just was that just me, or was that you too? Did that bother you?
I just kind of tried to ignore it, but people do mispronounce the words. Let's not talk about aluminum as it is spelled.
Aluminum. I agree.
As opposed to how the British pronounce it, aluminium.
Yeah. They spell it differently too, though, because they add those extra letters. So they cheat.
Oh, they're just making it up.
They're just making it up. Yes, I agree. I agree. Anyone who's in the UK, please don't come for us. We're sorry.
Yeah, no, but
yeah.
or another one, and I saw this on a game show once. Somebody lost a question because the answer was Washington. Okay, but they pronounced it Washington. Okay. To put an R in there, and then when they pronounced it, and they actually lost the question.
Wow, what would have happened if they'd had to pronounce the word Worcestershire sauce?
Nobody can pronounce that word.
No, they cannot. So it's a good thing he doesn't like murder mystery and Worcestershire sauce. So.
I had a
so murder mystery.
One of the reasons
and mayhem.
One of the reasons I was wanting to get a version of the script closer to the final was because in this sequence, Laura does this little thing. She grabs her nose and pinches it and kind of tilts her head. And I wanted to find out what the stage direction on that was, because I've seen some comments that suggest that gesture means something funny or something like that. And to me, I see it and it's like, did you step in something? Because it stinks.
Yeah, that's kind of what it would look like to me too.
So I was curious to know what the stage direction was and what it was intended to represent.
I don't know. Maybe she just had to sneeze and was trying to stop herself from sneezing, so she didn't ruin the take.
You never know.
Could have been.
Anyway, back to you.
Anyway, in terms of Mr. Steele, the ideal lady for him is one that he can work with as well as play with. And as she says this, Steele looks at Laura, who looks back with a smile, to be fair. She says he's never read The Prophet, but he's promised to run out and buy a copy. And then she says, don't worry, I have one by my bed. Okay. Clearly, Mariah has opinions.
Yeah, she probably has to test all the bachelors.
Oh, yeah. Take them. Well, yeah, you got to make sure that they're in good working condition.
That's right.
She then says the 5th bachelor, Dr. Harold Ridley, who is a noted plastic surgeon, is unable to join them at this time. She assumes that he has been dispatched on a medical matter. As things are wrapping up, we see Laura gets bumped into from behind by a cameraman. People are getting up to leave. They're jostling into her. So this is just sort of adding insult to injury as things go forward. Meanwhile, someone is tampering with the electrical system. The man who killed Dr. Ridley, whose name we don't yet know, has clipped some wires that connect to the spa. I gotta know, like, did he really assume that nobody was going to go in there until his intended victim did?
That was, I had that written down. It says, connecting the hot tub to electricity might be effective, but it seems a bit potentially random. Yeah, I mean, you're not controlling. Yeah.
Anybody, like Laura almost went in.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
She was about to dip her toe in and he had to stop her. Like, what is he going to do? Sit there and be like, oh, no. No one can go in this until so-and-so does. And then, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Very
back
random.
Inside, Mariah is telling the audience that there are going to be chances to meet the bachelors as the day wears on. She says they have tennis, golf, the hot tub, and other activities that each bachelor has, and that they have each had a woman selected to be their companion, chosen for their beauty, intelligence, and poise. And here's my next issue, and I know I'm not the only one. Cheerleaders?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I looked at those as they come running
cheerleaders.
out, and I'm not sure I would agree with those descriptions for the majority of them.
Okay. What? I'm not even talking about that. It's a hockey team.
Yeah.
Why the hell do you have cheerleaders for a hockey team? Where are they going to cheer? There's not a single hockey team on the planet that has cheerleaders.
Hey, we need cheerleaders. What? I mean, maybe the team is that bad that they need cheerleaders. Where
are they going to cheer? In the penalty box?
I don't know.
As a lifelong hockey fan, this is deeply confusing to me. Why not just have it be a different sport?
Well, you never know.
This feels like it should have been a football team. Have you ever
been to a Los Angeles hockey game? Maybe they have cheerleaders. Maybe that's where he got the inspiration.
I can categorically say that they do not. They do not. I can categorically say that there has never been a cheerleader for a hockey team in the history of hockey.
Maybe that's the hockey's problem.
You'd have to have them come out onto the ice. They'd get body checked. If these were true cheerleaders for a hockey team, they'd be missing some teeth for sure.
Well, I don't know.
So yeah, no, it feels like this really should have been a different sport, like a football team.
I won't disagree with you.
Or a basketball team. I could see cheerleaders for both of those.
Although Butch doesn't look like a basketball player, he looks like more of a football player than basketball.
True.
Not that he looks like a football player either.
And I mean, football would make the most sense for this, to be honest, because and I don't disagree with you on the beauty, intelligence, and poise comment either, but it just makes no sense that you would have a hockey team. And it's weird that they included a hockey team to begin with. Not that LA has a very successful hockey team, but I don't often meet Americans that live outside of a hockey city that give a crap about hockey. So this seems like an odd. No, it's true though. Like if you're in LA, then you might run into Kings fans, and if you're in Nashville, you're probably going to run into some Predators fans. You know, two of them that live there, and you know if you live in Detroit or whatever, I'm sure. I don't know. But like, I don't usually run into anybody or talk to any Americans that live outside of hockey cities that like hockey or even acknowledge that hockey exists, right? So if you're going to pick a sport that has cheerleaders and people know about football seems to be the choice.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's a weird decision.
Yeah. Okay. I'll grant you all of that.
I've spent far too long on this, but cheerleaders for a hockey team. Anyway. So as the Owlettes come in, we see Laura facepalm as they enter, which is sort of funny. And then, of course, Steele's companion. I'm Millicent Fairbush.
Oh, that is so close to the line. Oh, and his response especially.
It's such a great, Oh, it's perfect. Like, it's perfect. Like, very James Bond moment right there. Pussy galore, of course you are. Right, like, same thing. He walks by with Millicent and looks over at Laura, and he mutters "dreadful bore" as they walk by.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Then we get a scene change. Laura is standing by the pool. Steele goes off with Millicent. The murderer, as I'm just going to call him the murderer until we get his official name, comes up to her and asks if she is going to join the fun. She says she's not really interested in watching a bunch of grown men act like adolescent schoolboys, even if it sells magazines. She goes on to express her irritation at society and the way liberated women will fight for a copy of the magazine to ogle the bachelors and dream of one day entrapping one of them, which is kind of ironic since, I mean, she's trying to, I wouldn't say she's trying to entrap Mr. Steele, but she's definitely trying to lock him down. So,
well, you know, and the thing is, that was one of that whole liberated ladies fighting for a copy so they can ogle bachelors. That was the whole premise behind Playboy or Playgirl magazine. And although it was not as long lived as Playboy was, it certainly was successful.
And you've also got, like, on a lesser level, People magazine does their Sexiest Man Alive issue every year, which Pierce has been on the cover of. So, in a incident of life imitating art, he was the Sexiest Man Alive at one point on People magazine's cover. So it is a thing. It definitely is a thing.
And wasn't he just recently voted the sexiest grandfather in Ireland or something like that?
Something like, because usually if you buy the Sexiest Man Alive People magazine edition, and I did buy the one that Pierce was in, they usually will have a list of other categories, like, you know, sexiest, I don't know, singer, sexiest this, sexiest that. So they'll have a bunch of other people in there. So if he was in there and voted sexiest grandpa in Ireland, I would.
VIP magazine. I just looked it up while we were talking here. VIP magazine, the home of Irish celebrities. Pierce Brosnan named sexiest grandpa alive. And this is September of 2023. So, yeah.
Wow.
They're still doing it. They're still ogling at
with your bad self. Good for you. He's still got it.
Yeah, women are still ogling the men.
Yep. I mean, hey, it's a liberated world, right? So.
Yeah. But apparently Laura finds that objectionable. Anyway.
Well, she does admit, because he says, he asks her if she has those fantasies, and she admits sometimes. So at least she kind of is acknowledging that is a part of her, right? She asks him if he's connected with this, and he says, in a way. And she asks if he works for Upbeat magazine. He says, unfortunately, he publishes it and introduces himself as Victor Janoff. So now we have his name. So she gives him her name and admits she's just put her foot in her mouth. And he tells her that he that he agrees it's a tawdry excuse to sell magazines. But he's going to do it anyway, right? Like,
that's right.
It's going to sell. So Laura takes off her sandal. She goes to dip her toe in. That's where he stops her and tells her the water is over 100 degrees. And if she's not prepared for it, can give quite a jolt. Yeah. So she thanks him for the warning, says that he is sure their paths will cross again, kisses her hand, and he leaves. So, yeah, he, I guess, managed to stop somebody from getting zapped before they were supposed to.
Yep.
And then we get a scene change. Millicent and Steele are sort of playing tennis. It looks like it until the camera pans back and we see that she's the one hitting the ball from the machine. And he's standing there drinking what looks to be a glass of wine.
Did you notice that they sped up the film?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Make her look a little bit more energetic. I'm thinking that she probably wasn't all that energetic to begin with. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I meant, like, why isn't he playing? Why is he just standing there drinking a glass of wine while she does all the work?
Yeah.
It's a weird choice. Anyway. Mariah approaches and asks if she can get a photo of him hitting the ball. He leaps over the net, hits a couple, and is praised on his form. Mariah then tells her to pretend that he's just beaten Jimmy Connell 6-love and to give him a big victory kiss. She kisses him, and here's where things are... They start to get dicey, right? Like, this is what I mean about tonally this feels a little off, because she kisses him, and it's a long kiss. Like, he lets it go on far longer than was necessary. And then when they part, he seems real happy about it. He says that her enthusiasm is not only to be commended, but rewarded. Like,
yeah, I've got written down, what
cheating.
sort of reward did he have in mind?
Right? Like, I mean, is he going for plausible deniability here? Because he certainly didn't, like, he could have let her give him a peck on the lips and then just sort of stepped back, right? And deferred her affection. But no, he goes right for it and then does not express any regret for it whatsoever. Like, I don't love it.
I suppose you could argue that he's playing the role of the eligible bachelor, that he's not really sincere in it. He's just an actor acting a part. It's I know it's a weak explanation. Like, it's one of those, well, we've got to find some way of justifying the behavior, but
yeah, I don't know. I kind of get the impression that he's into it. Like,
yeah, he does seem to be.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but Mariah then ushers everyone on to the hot tub.
Maybe he's a really good actor.
Yeah. And we've got Butch doing backflips off the diving board into the pool. Like a child. Like, Mariah is trying to get him into the hot tub. She looks at this point like a disheveled parent trying to get a kid to put their shoes on, right? Like, mustn't keep the photographers waiting. Like, and again, are we to believe no one's gotten into that hot tub? That I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch.
Well, you want to keep the water fresh and smooth so that when he gets into it, it doesn't look like anybody's been in there before him. You know, like when they do the commercials for cars and they're driving through this snow-covered landscape where not a soul has been before. I mean, they've got people standing there at the end of the road saying, no, we got the road closed down. You can't come in here.
Do not attempt. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, driver on closed course. Do not attempt.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then we've got Laura sitting by the pool. She's sipping a glass of wine. She sarcastically asks if that's the fine sense of humor Miss Taylor was talking about. And Arnold Baskin, the attorney, says that's just how he plays hockey. All brawn, no brains. So obviously no love lost there.
No.
He walks off and we see Steele standing in a robe. Laura makes fun of him, saying, "What a hairy chest you have. So macho, so manly," which is kind of funny. Like, she's having her fun here.
Mm-hmm.
He says that he finds this as distasteful as she does.
Well, but he doesn't say it sincerely, though.
No, of course not. We saw that kiss a minute ago.
Yeah.
Millicent comes up and asks if he wants to experience the hot tub. She gets in another sarcastic quip about it being a dirty job, but someone has to do it.
Can I say about Millicent?
But you know what's interesting? Yeah, go for it.
She is way, way, way too skinny to be attractive. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that sounds sexist and demeaning, but I'm sorry. That is not. Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those things where this is where society was telling women that was attractive. And it's funny because oftentimes when society makes these statements, or they make these statements via like magazines and things like that, it's usually not what people actually want. It's like when we talk about like people in actual relationships with other actual humans, right? Generally, like that's not what usually that's not what actually people are attracted to. Which isn't to say that that people, like, if you're thin, that no one's going to find you attractive. I just think that when the beauty standard is set by whoever, or whatever societal norms are dictating the beauty standard, that's not necessarily true for all humans, and it certainly isn't necessarily I think it was Kate Moss who said nothing tastes as good as being skinny feels, and that was kind of like where society was at that point. So, and we've seen this before with Laura making comments about wanting to lose 5 pounds or stuff like that. Like that was obviously the message that society was trying to push. And I agree that it's kind of a gross message because it usually leads to women being deeply unhealthy.
And you were commenting about leads to things being unhealthy, which is how we lost Karen Carpenter, because she had anorexia.
Yeah.
And she was of the mind that she wasn't skinny enough. And when she finally dealt with that issue and started getting medical care, and this was back at, at the very early stages of people even knowing what that was, the change in her life to try and get her back on course actually impacted her heart, because her heart was no longer strong enough to handle the change, and that's what killed her.
Yeah. And it's interesting that this episode airs right after Steel Threads, because in the episode prior to this, Laura described the runway as feeling like a meat line, right? She felt like just flesh. And so it's interesting that she doesn't really have any sympathy for Mr. Steele or any of the other bachelors being treated as, quote, just flesh. In fact, she seems deeply irritated by it. And B, she is treating these women similarly to the way she was treated, in the sense that, like, they're just bimbos, right? They're not. And to be fair, the episode sort of positions them that way too. But it's an interesting episode to come directly on the heels of Steel Threads.
And in that sense, that was also something I had in my notes and I forgot to mention early on, because I just kind of skipped over it, is that in a way, this is kind of the reverse of Steel Threads, in the sense that, okay, in Steel Threads, we had the women being up there paraded around. Now we have the men being up there paraded around. But yeah, your comment about Laura, her response and attitude is interesting, because in a sense, she still is consistent. She objected it to that kind of treatment of women in Steel Threads.
Oh yeah,
and she's kind of still objecting to that kind of treatment of men in this one. But it's less about the men in this one. It's less about the fact that they are being treated like pieces of meat in this one, as much as it is about the fact that they're being dangled out there in front of women who are hungry for those pieces of meat. And it's more about it's the men's fault that the women are behaving this way. Not quite, but I mean,
I
that's
think
kind of,
some
there's
of
an
it is
element
personal.
of that.
Yeah. I think some of it is personal. I think regardless of who agreed to do it or why, she does not like the idea of him being a part of it. Like, I think it bothers her deeply. So
it didn't seem to bother him when she was a part of it, though. Interesting. I'm guessing that's just a gender issue.
Well, she wasn't also expected to date anybody.
Well, that's true.
She was just walking a runway, right? Like he in fact, he was the one that was expected to come around and poke and prod and be Mr. Birmingham. Leela, such wonderful fabric.
Sam from Birmingham.
Yeah, that was it. Anyway. Sam St. Cloud.
Anyway, back in the episode.
Yeah, back to the episode. He offers to go into the hot tub in Butch's place, saying he would consider it a blessing. As they walk towards the hot tub, though, Butch leaps over Laura like a toddler trying to get his PJs on faster than anyone else, and jumps into the hot tub first, where he is immediately burned to a crisp.
Barbecued.
It's like, no, I want to get my pajamas on first.
Congratulations, you win.
So no more. Yep. And the LA Owls lose. They're going to have to find another hockey player. And again, I got one more objection to this whole hockey nonsense. He has all his teeth. There is no way he is a hockey player for the LA. He has all his teeth.
Well, maybe anyway. They're not his teeth. Maybe he's got a really good set of fake choppers.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. So then we've got a scene change. Mariah is in Laura and Steele's office saying it's senseless and tragic. She tells them how she knew of Dr. Ridley's death before the ceremony, having been told that the day prior he was killed in a riding accident, kicked to death by his horse. Then they called back and said all signs pointed to murder, and she didn't say anything because she didn't want to dampen the festivities. Because, that would really put a damper on things, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Pesky murder ruining my magazine thing. Yeah. So Laura asks if there's a connection between the men, and Mariah says they all tended to travel in the same circles except for Mr. Steele, whose circles are more obscure, which is why she picked him. So yeah, Laura agrees that he is quite mysterious. Steele urges them to get back to the case and points out that he might be the case, as he is the only link that they have is the fact that they're bachelors. So Mariah, she's busy fretting about the photo session, saying that he was supposed to be cooking dinner for Millicent. Dinner for Millicent. Canard au Vin Rouge, where we had that one before.
Right.
Is this okay? Maybe we have been wrong about Mr. Steele all this time. Maybe he's not a gourmet cook. Okay, hear me out.
Okay.
All we've ever seen him cook is this duck, plus, noodle soup. Maybe the duck thing's all he can do. And anything else is noodle soup in his little steel tureen. I'm just saying.
It could very well be.
Maybe he is a one-trick wonder when it comes to his duck.
Can we jump back to Millicent for a second? Are you saying that someone's killed all these men because they're bachelors, and they say at the moment that's all we have, and then she says, "Dear Lord, what will that do to our photo session?" She doesn't care about the guys. That's why she didn't bring it up earlier. It's not about putting a damper on the festivities. It's I don't care about these men. She's almost as bad as
no, she doesn't.
She
doesn't care. She does not care.
No.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. She just needs to sell some magazines, and so therefore this has to go well, and people have to just stop being murdered. Okay, they just need to stop. Right. It's ruining my photo session.
It's inconvenient for me.
It's really not great. I'm not impressed. So yeah, and it also has to hurt. Putting aside my joke about him only being able to make Canard au Vin Rouge, that's the same meal that he made for her in Dreams of Steel. So that's got to hurt, right? That he's going to because it's a photo shoot. Technically, he doesn't really need to cook a full freaking meal. He could order something and put it in his little steel,
that's right,
containers, and he's actually going to the trouble to make this meal for her. Which, ouch.
Yeah, you're right. That is an ouch. Yeah, unless that's the only thing he knows how to cook. He
suggests they cancel. Yeah. Well, but like I said, they could just order from that fancy restaurant that makes him all his nameplates and then put it in the bowls and make it look like he made it. Who's going to know?
That's true. Anyway.
So yeah, Steele suggests they cancel the dinner, and Laura says, on the contrary, he's going to be Johnny on the spot. I get that she's hurt, but maybe using him as bait is not how to solve your problems. So Steele asks what she will be doing while he plays clay pigeon over his dead duck. Yeah, right? This is the second time, and it's both times he has cooked Canard au Vin Rouge. She's wanted to use him as bait for something. So,
that's right.
Yikes. So she says she's going to check out the other bachelors to hope they find a link. And then Mariah praises Steele for his bravery and then asks him what color his walls are. She doesn't want Millicent to blend into the background, of course.
Yeah.
And then Steele callously says that Millicent would stand out in anything she wears and tells Laura to call him if something turns up. So she swallows her anger, tells him to count on it, and Mildred watches them go. We talked about this before, but Mildred's not really in this episode very much. She wasn't in Steel Threads at all, and she's only got a couple of scenes in this episode too. She watches them go. She says to Laura that Millicent is a barracuda, and Laura adds she's looking for a hot lunch. And Mildred asks if Laura's going to do anything about it. And Laura says that there's a case to pursue. Mildred says, not with me, and tells Laura she's going over to Steele's to help him with his Canard au Vin Rouge. Laura tries to stop her, and Mildred assures her the only thing that's going to be sampled is the duck. I do love that Mildred's like, well, okay, fine. You're not going to do anything. I'm going to put the brakes on this and just kind of go sailing on in there.
Since you brought up Mildred, and actually she brought herself up because she's in this scene, that was one of the things about the original script that was off for me. Because in the original script, Mildred winds up doing some research on the backgrounds of some of the other bachelors for Holt and Steele. And she does it by logging into the IRS computers as an agent.
Oh.
We know that that's not Mildred.
Fraud.
We know that that's not her because she's always been very, very much.
She was so freaked out.
By the book, never do anything wrong, type person. And so that was totally out of character. And so I can see why Michael Gleason at some point jumped in and did some major rewrites on the script. But Yeah, that was one of the things about the original version of the script that just didn't match up to what we'd been taught about these characters. And so that was just one of the things about the original script that just was created this whole aura of something's off.
Yeah, I agree. That wouldn't have been Mildred at all. And like I said, I think Steele's acting a bit out of character. It's not out of character for him to needle Laura or to kind of poke at her or anything like that. But I do think, absent of Laura even being there, the lingering kiss with Millicent and the behavior as if he's really genuinely interested in pursuing something with her is not him. Like, that part's not him.
The only part of that that's consistent with him is that it's a tall blonde.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
You know, in that sense, that is consistent. But you're right. The behavior itself is
that his behavior in this episode is season 1 Remington, like early season 1. I could see this episode fitting in very nicely in like the beginning part of season 1. But now, like, they are in an established relationship, and so his behavior is really quite cruel. Like, I don't know. We get Laura showing up at Chip Carstairs' house. Victor Janoff is outside watching. Chip is wearing this weird robe tuxedo thing. Like, he's got a tux underneath, like a house coat. Is this supposed to be attractive? Because I've seen this in TV before, and honestly, every time I see it, it looks like somebody just got back from a black tie function and forgot to take their suit off before going to bed.
I've not seen this type of dressing affair, or dressing arrangement, dressing whatever you want to call it. I've not seen it before, other than in this episode. Obviously, I'm not watching the right kind of TV shows.
Yeah, I've seen it before. It's weird to me, though, because it is a thing, but I find it very strange. He immediately puts his arm around Laura, turns on what he thinks is the charm. He asks her if she's eaten. She says no. He leads her inside. An elaborate table is set for this photo session. Still thinking he's smooth, he offers to warm up his lemon chicken. Laura rolls her eyes, saying she understands why they chose him for Upbeat. He tells her that women are attracted to him because he understands
I don't think she meant that as a compliment.
No, she did not. She did not. That was definitely an insult. And I would also add that almost every man who delivers a line like that knows nothing about women. Like, any dude that's walking up and going, women love me because I understand you so well. No, you don't. Yeah. Nope.
Well, he may understand a very, very, very small segment of the population.
Yeah.
But the rest probably think he's an arrogant jerk. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Laura asks him if he knew Butch. She takes her hand away before he can kiss it. He agrees that it's a terrible thing and turns on Tchaikovsky.
Nope.
And lowers the lights.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
I thought it was the spring.
Vivaldi.
The
Vivaldi,
seasons,
the Four Seasons.
Vivaldi.
That's Vivaldi.
Oh, Vivaldi's. You're right. Sorry. You are correct. Yep. Either way.
I don't know why I know that one so quickly.
You know what? No, you're right. Now that you said it, and for whatever reason, when I wrote it down, I should have remembered that because that was on an exam I took in high school once. But anyway, I got it right then. He adds that the guy who must really be in mourning is Victor Janoff, and suggests that they have some wine, adding that it's only bottled in small quantities, and he saves it for very special occasions. They sit down on the floor. Because no one used chairs
2023
on this show. Where? Why? Why do they not use chairs? Help me understand.
I don't know. It's
okay.
You know, there's a lot of designers out there that they design these places and spaces for people that have a lot of money and no sense, and they do some of the dumbest design things, you know, and then the people who have hired them, like you were saying earlier about how people talk about, well, you know, they pick this obscure band because they want to sound like they're real intellectual and such. The people that hire them don't want to admit that the emperor has no clothes on. So they, oh yes, it's just a brilliant design. And so they go along with it. And So then they wind up sitting on the floor.
This seems more like a choice because I think he does have furniture. They just decided not to use it. But either way, that seems actually pretty par for the course where Laura's concerned. If she's on furniture, she's laying on top of a desk or, crouching on a coffee table while changing a baby. Yeah, so Laura asks why Victor would benefit from Butch's death. He tells her that Janoff owns the LA Owls and asks her what she hears. And when she says, referring to the music, sorry, she says violins, and he's spring, rebirth, and he attempts to kiss her, adding that she's a very beautiful woman. She politely reminds him that she's on a case. He stops, and then she continues to ask about Victor Janoff. He says his firm handled a stock issue when Victor went public. He asks, and as he's doing this, of course, he's getting the dinner ready and doing all this stuff while she's just sort of rolling her eyes and kind of ignoring what she doesn't want to acknowledge and trying to get information out of him. So he asks her if she likes capers. She says no, and he says he doesn't either. She asks, can you talk and cook at the same time? He says that he got a peek at Janoff's report, and no matter what she's heard, he's skating on thin ice. Butch Moran was the only asset that he had. He was the franchise, and without him, it's over and out. So obviously this was an interesting choice to kill him if he's necessary to the franchise, but we find out later why that is. Chip brings the lemon chicken over to Laura, who muses it's not much of a motive for murder. This makes me cringe. He gets really close to her face, like really close, and produces a bit of this stringy chicken, which does not look good. And then he attempts to sound seductive when he tells her that one bite is all it will take to tingle her taste buds. She is unimpressed. She tells him that she is not used to having her taste buds tingled, and Chip has to be the dumbest himbo on the planet because he still does not seem to get the hint that she is not only uninterested but repulsed. So, not bright.
I'm not interested in either. I mean, and I can see why Laura would be. I mean, as a guy, I find him objectionable, and he's giving guys a bad name.
Appealing. Literally nothing appealing about this man. And I am not a shallow person, so like I don't find the actor that plays Chip attractive. But if this were a person who was genuinely a nice human being and had a great personality and all that stuff, a good personality can make somebody attractive. And similarly, a really bad personality can take that away, right? So we already have a guy he's not hideous looking, but he's not Pierce Brosnan. And then you add all of this on top of it, and he's just the most repulsive guy. And it's obviously intentional.
Yeah. But he's definitely giving men a bad name. That's for sure.
Oh, he's so gross. He's so gross. So then he takes a bite, and instead of having his taste buds tingled, he drops dead immediately. Yeah. So
it tingled.
I think she didn't try his lemon chicken. It tingled, and then it died. He died. I couldn't think of a good pun there. So then we switch. Steele is bringing his Canard au Vin Rouge to Millicent, who goes to take a bite. Mariah tells her that she doesn't have to eat it, as people don't look good with food in their mouths. Again, why actually make the meal then? Why not just to have something in front of you that you're going to pretend to eat? Because, yeah.
I guess the idea is that after they take the photos, they leave him alone and see what happens.
I guess so. She encourages Steele to just make it look as if he is feeding her. Steele asks and this is interesting because he does not know that Chip has just been poisoned to death, right? He has no knowledge of this, and asks if they know how the tradition of the host feeding the guest got started, and tells him to begin with the Borgias. And Millicent dumbly says, "Oh, I've eaten there," which Mildred, and this is great, in the background, she chokes on her drink because of how dumb this woman is. She's just, Doris Roberts is a freaking gem. Anything that she does comedically is just on point, and this is it right here. Do you know anything about the Borgias?
I didn't. Oh, I know that they were not highly thought of, but that's about all all the depth I get into it. Yeah.
So I did a quick search. Spanish note, because I did know about the Borgias, but I didn't know like the full. I knew they were famous for like poisoning, and essentially they're a Spanish noble family who rose to prominence during the Italian Renaissance, and they became like very kind of like well known in political affairs, and helped like prop up 2 popes. So they were basically very highly regarded in sort of court, but they were also suspected of many crimes, including adultery, incest, theft, bribery, murder, especially murder by arsenic poisoning. So this was a big thing. And because of their grasping for power, they made enemies of like a bunch of people. And yeah, so they stood out in history as being infamously steeped in sin and immorality. And there's evidence to suggest that their one-dimensional characterization is a result of undeserved contemporary critique. So that's what, according to Wikipedia, says. But yeah, so poison was a big thing for them. Mariah corrects Millicent, saying the Borgias were in the 15th century. And Steele explains that they poisoned so many people that whenever they dined with anyone, they always insisted that the Borgias take the first bite to prove it wasn't poison. So it's kind of funny that he brought that up, considering Chip.
Yeah, and it's at this point that something interesting happens, because if you look at it, he says, and in their honor, I'll take the first bite, and he takes a bite, and he gets kind of a look on his face like it's like, okay, it's tolerable. And then Melissa,
he doesn't look like
asks,
she looks nervous.
You almost get the impression that he didn't cook it, that maybe she did, because after he takes the bite, well, how was it?
Or that she might have had access to it when he wasn't paying attention or something.
Yeah, it seems to be there's a inconsistency or continuity thing here, because he supposedly cooked it, but he's tasting it and it doesn't seem to really impress him taste-wise. Millicent is concerned about how he thinks it tastes, as if she had cooked it. And then his comment, I think I'll live. It's...
Yeah, I think this was done for the benefit of the audience, because we've just seen Chip die of poison, right? But it doesn't make sense character-wise for Steele to bring this up. It's a weird thing to bring up when you're supposedly doing a photo shoot. Like, that's not really it's not a good way to impress a woman, to tell her about, like, a family that poisoned each other. And it's a weird thing to bring up. But also, it feels like it's being brought up only for the audience to remind us, oh, hey, one of the bachelors just died by poisoning, and Steele's mentioning poison, and he's about to take a bite. And then Millicent's reaction to it as well feels more like trying to trick the audience into being worried that he's about to keel over than it does making sense to the plot.
Yeah, it's the whole thing, the fact that it kind of flips over who apparently cooked it or seems to have cooked it. Everybody's concerned. The reference to the Borgias. Yeah, it's. I'm going to use a phrase here that's probably going to get me in trouble, particularly considering Michael Gleason's name on the script. It feels like bad writing.
Well, I wonder if he's on the script nominally because he doctored some of it, but maybe not all of it. I don't know. I'm not going to argue there, because it does feel like this is mainly to remind us that Steele could be poisoned, right? And even if he didn't know what happened to Chip, surely he should know to be a little bit careful. I'm not saying like get her to taste it, hope she doesn't keel over, but like, I don't know. It just seems
it's not good dinner
odd
conversation
to bring it up. No, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. So yeah, as you said, the others watch him carefully until he declares that he's going to live. Millicent laughs nervously. Mariah ushers them all out, saying that she still has others to shoot. I didn't see her take any photos. Did you?
No.
Like she talks about how like this is for the photo shoot, but like I didn't see a camera click. He didn't feed her. He took a bite, and then she was like, "Okay, we're going." I guess we're supposed to assume they took pictures somewhere in there.
Well, they had a photographer there, and he has a flash on his camera, so presumably you would have seen the flash. But I don't see any evidence of it actually having happened. So yeah, you're right.
She tells Steele to call her and that she'll read him selected passages from the prophet. She blows him a kiss, which Mildred sarcastically imitates.
And
again,
that was another
hilarious.
thing I wanted to check, because we know Doris Roberts is great with spontaneous
she's so good.
reactions.
She's so good.
I wanted to know if that was scripted or if that was Doris Roberts just, in the spur of the moment,
Doris,
being inspired.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess
like in the last
Roberts,
episode where
she's just that funny. When yeah,
exactly.
Oh, she's just that funny. She's really funny. And Mildred, she comes back in just as Millicent is suggestively telling Steele she wants to devour his duck, and hands her her wrap. She wraps her purse around her neck and uses it to pull Millicent almost out of the chair. Millicent points out she hasn't eaten, and Mildred, not missing a beat, offers to make her a doggy bag. Steele says that she is their guest, sounding a little irritated as Millicent asks for a glass of wine. He takes her into the living room, where it will be less crowded, and Millicent asks if she lives in, referring to Mildred, to which he replies that it seems that way. Mildred brings a styrofoam cup with wine in it and tells her to leave. Mildred is not having it. She is just... Not she... Steele then tells Mildred that she can go. Mildred refuses, saying that she has dishes. Steele counters with, they can wait until morning, and Mildred insists that they might attract bugs, and she never leaves anything around that can cause problems. I get the feeling she'd be willing to take a hit. That she's, hinting to, I will take this woman out, Mr. Steele. She will not, her body will get found days from me. Oof, ouch.
Yeah. Well, she's fighting Steele too, because Steele obviously wants Melissa to stay and feel welcome. But yeah, she's fighting Steele on Laura's behalf, and she doesn't. She knows he knows what she's doing, and she doesn't care that he knows what she's doing. It's like she's right up there, nose to nose, punch to punch.
Yep. Yeah, determined to save him from himself, essentially, and then. She kind of stalks away. Steele opens up a discussion about Butch's death. Millicent expresses sadness, saying he had some great moves, and he wasn't a bad hockey player either. Which is the best line. Oh my God, I love it. He asks if she was acquainted with Butch, and she says that she was acquainted with the entire starting lineup, which is also funny. But it also doesn't make any sense, again, from a hockey perspective, because... okay, yes, they do have hockey works in shifts.
You're not going to give it up,
so
are
you have
you?
I'm not going to give it up because it doesn't make sense. You've got lines, right? There's only ever 5 men on the ice, so you'll have the first line, the second line. Usually, there's a third line, right? And
she's probably acquainted with the entire team
as necessary. Well, I mean, you'd think she'd say the whole team then, not just the starting line, because that'd only be 5 guys. And I have a feeling she's gotten around. So. Anyway, he asks about the other bachelors, and she suggestively says, not yet, and then says that there's one she'd like to know better. And before he can respond, Mildred comes back. And she is not pulling her punches here. And I don't think I've ever heard this word used on the show until this point. But she says, don't you feel like a slut parading around in those skimpy costumes? Wow.
I have to ask, though. I mean, has Mildred been to a beach or a swimming pool lately? Cheerleader costumes are more modest than bikinis.
Yeah.
And that's even the most immodest, or that's compared to the most modest of bikinis. Some of those bikinis are little more than pieces of yarn.
Well, string bikini, right? It's literally strings with tiny bits of fabric. Yeah.
Yeah. So a cheerleader costume, I mean, come on, Mildred. You're old, but you're not that old.
If we are operating under the premise that hockey would have cheerleaders, which it would not, but say that we are, it's cold. So they wouldn't be wearing next to nothing because they'd be freezing on the ice. They'd have to have at least some tights or something, I would imagine. But yeah.
Well, when they're cold though, when they're cold, they get
okay.
Yes. And if you have kids listening,
no.
you have to explain that one to them. I will not. It's a family-friendly show. And
yep. Oh, dear. Well, she asks, Steele jumps up, grabs Mildred's arm, as she protests that she was just making conversation. And he excuses them to discuss dessert, mincemeat pie, and drags her into the kitchen. You would never have mincemeat pie for dessert, but okay. But this is one of the few times that Mildred
de Van Rouge, or just in general?
Exactly. In general, it's not a dessert, is it?
I always thought it was. I mean, I'm not a fan of it, but I always thought it was a dessert. That's how. Let's see, if I remember correctly, my mom used to make it, and that's what it was a dessert.
Okay.
Well, that was my attitude about it too, in general. But I mean, that's what she used it as, was a dessert.
Okay. Well,
what do I know?
This is one of the few times that Mildred has outright defied him as well, which is interesting because up until this point, she fawns over him, right? But here she is not afraid to just get right in his face and tell him he's wrong. He demands an answer. Mildred says she has 2 words for him, and he says that he hopes that they are good night, and she says Miss Holt. And he seems angry that she's trying to protect her, and Mildred argues that she cares for him too. He says he cares for Laura as well, and Mildred challenges him on why he's parading around with that bimbo. And then he says, let me tell you something about our relationship, then stops himself and says, on second thought, let's not. I'm wondering here if he recognizes that Mildred is in part, as maybe Mildred's approach was not the best approach, but I'm wondering if he recognizes here that she's partly right in that his behavior is not fair to Laura.
I think we get that at the end of this scene. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. He does try to insist to Mildred that he and Laura are merely friends. She is not buying it. He says maybe more. She asks how much more. He says the kind that's filled with promise but otherwise unfulfilled. So here's my question. Does this mean he would have slept with Millicent and not thought of it as cheating? Like if Mildred wasn't there to stop him.
If he's describing his and Laura's relationship in the way he seems to be, then yeah, I would say yeah, because he doesn't seem to think that they are exclusive. So yeah, I guess he would.
I don't like that.
I didn't say it to make you like it. I just that was just my analysis based on your question.
No, I know. Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, but this is why I feel that this is out of character, because they've had conversations where they've discussed that they are in a relationship. So it feels really weird that he would be operating in this morally gray ambiguity. And I would understand if he had instead insisted to Mildred that he was only keeping Millicent there to get information about Butch, which, to be fair, that's what he seemed to be doing on the couch. That would make sense. And I could see that. I could see that argument, and him saying to Mildred, listen, I'm not doing what you think you're doing. I'm trying to get information. I need you to go. Trust me. And that would, but he doesn't do that. He kind of just writes it off. And then he says that Mildred says that she loves him and Miss Holt doesn't want to see anyone get hurt. He says that's admirable, but whatever course the relationship has to take has to be set by him and Laura, which is not wrong. But
this whole thing from him right here is really significantly different than how I read the original version of the script, because his line here, it's the kind that's fulfilled with promise but otherwise unfulfilled. And then his follow-up line that you just mentioned about how their relationship, his and Laura's, is going to be determined by them. Obviously, the way this is being intended to be read here is that they have not slept together. But in the original version of the script, that is less ambiguous. It's actually more suggestive of them having slept together or getting ready to. So I think that was, or at least that's the way I read the original script. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but yeah, it definitely seemed like that original script, there was a lot more physicality between the two of them and a lot more conversation between the two of them alluding to them having a physical relationship versus what we have here of the kind that's filled with promise and otherwise unfulfilled, and where our relationship winds up going is between us, but kind of implying that we really haven't gotten that far to in the discussion even yet. So
no, and again, like, this is the guy that went charging off and slapped Derek Vivian upside the head because Vivian hit on Laura, right? Like, it's a weird, right? It's weird that he's being so cavalier with Millicent when he says to Derek Vivian that he and Miss Holt are in a relationship, that it was hurtful for him to behave that way towards Laura when she is spoken for. And then it's out of character. It's not.
Yeah, it's inconsistent.
Yeah. So then Mildred asks if she should apologize to the bimbo, and he tells her to finish the dishes and not to, so they don't attract bugs.
Yeah, this is where I think what you were saying earlier about Steele recognizing that Mildred is really acting in their best interest, his and Laura's. Yeah. And that he's not going to keep fighting her on it because I'll finish the dishes. We don't want to attract any bugs, do we? It's not get out of here. Cute. It's not a direct acknowledgement that, okay, I was out of line and you're right. And so go ahead and hang out and play chaperone. But it is, in that sort of backhanded way.
Yeah. Yeah. So he gives her a kiss on the cheek. When he goes back out there, Millicent is already getting ready to leave. She says she's got pom-pom practice in the morning. And he offers to drive her home. So, yeah, okay. I don't know pom-poms in a hockey arena. Anyway, so he drives her home.
Again, what's that?
And we see Victor. It doesn't make any sense. He drives her home. We see Victor Janoff watching them both. She pulls in for another very long kiss, and he does not protest, which, again, like, they're not in front of cameras. They're not at a party. He doesn't need to perform this for anybody, and yet he's still taking the opportunity to make out with her. Like, when he pulls away, she says that next time she will fix him a meal, preferably breakfast. Rather than tell her that that's not going to happen, he smiles and walks away. And I don't feel particularly bad for him when he's nearly run down by that car, frankly, at this point.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not pleased with his behavior. Bad, Mr. Steele. Bad.
Well, I think getting run over is a little bit extreme retribution. But
okay, fine.
Whatever.
It's fine.
As long as you don't mention Buffy.
He lands in a pile of trash. Yeah, I hadn't yet, had I? He lands in a pile of trash, loses his keys to the Auburn, and he's looking for them. Victor comes at him, and this time he doesn't have the chance to fully jump out of the way. He's hit, and he lands in the grass. So he is down. Next scene, we see Laura in the hospital frantically rushing to find him. She runs to his bedside, hugs him, which causes him to cry out in pain. She asks the doctor how he is, and the doctor says lucky, explaining that he isn't concussed, but he has a broken leg, 3 broken ribs, and lots of cuts and abrasions. So, ouch. Yeah. He laments that he was certainly Johnny on the spot, and she asks what happened. He tells her that he played a game of follow the bouncing ball, but he was the ball. Laura asks if he saw who did it, but he didn't. She asks the doctor if he can go home, and he says yes, but whoever stays with him has to wake him every couple of hours just to make sure he's okay. And it's at this point that Millicent comes into the hospital room. Laura says she and Mildred will take turns. Millicent says that she'll stay with him, handing him a cup of tea, which apparently is awful, because she put lemon and sugar, but doesn't know how he takes it. The look on his face is pretty funny.
Oh, lemon, sugar, and milk.
Yeah. Ooh.
I'm sorry. That's like you're trying to poison him. Lemon and sugar. Yeah, well, sugar and milk, maybe, but the lemon and milk? No.
Yeah. No thanks. Millicent says she feels responsible. When she asks why, Millicent says it happened on her doorstep, and it wouldn't have happened if she'd accepted his invitation to stay the night. Ouch. I mean, he didn't, but that was obviously designed to hurt Laura, and it worked.
Yeah,
So.
and it does seem that Laura kind of buys it.
Yeah, she does buy it. But to be fair, he hasn't really given her a reason not to in this episode.
That's true.
So it's kind of one of those things. They return home to the apartment, wheel him in, poor guy. He asks for a cup of tea with nothing in it. He's very adamant about that. As Millicent goes into the kitchen, Laura wheels him rather briskly into the bedroom. She helps him onto the bed. It's funny when he's trying to get his shoe off, and he's like, "Careful, careful! It's a very expensive shoe." He doesn't have the other one on.
That's right. It's
no idea what
missing.
happened to it, but he's yeah, it's missing. But hey, that one is important. We got to be careful about that shoe. So that's kind of cute. He insists to her that he did not ask Millicent to spend the night. Part of me thinks this is semantics because he kissed her the way that he did, but she skates on by this. She says there's more important things to be doing. She doesn't want to have this conversation. It's clear that she's not sure whether she can trust him. He insists he needs to talk to her, and she says that he's a grown man, she's a grown woman, and so he asks why are they acting like two children. It's interesting that he shows this level of maturity now.
Yeah. Well, now that he's been kind of caught.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's now trying to have this conversation saying, I didn't ask her to stay the night with me, but you did kiss her and you did, kind of go along with it up until this point. So.
And yeah, if she had, if circumstances had been different or somebody had said something different or somebody had made an offer different, then yeah, you can see based on everything that happened up to this point that yeah, he might have. She might have.
Yeah, it definitely, and you can see why Laura is upset. She still ignores him. She tells him that someone poisoned Chip Carstairs. Someone's going around killing the bachelors, which, to be fair, this next line is funny. In that case, will you marry me, Laura?
Yeah, that was in the original version as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they kept that one around for season 5, but she says it doesn't make sense, and he suggests that maybe it's not supposed to.
Now we're coming up to a point of contention here. So,
okay, he references point it out when we get there. He references the ABC murders, which she thinks she saw with William Powell and Myrna Lloyd. He says it was never made into a movie, but it was an Agatha Christie novel in which A kills. Oh, okay.
There. I'm afraid it was never made into a movie.
What is it? Because I don't.
And the answer is wrong.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
The Alphabet Murders, starring Tony Randall. Tony Randall as Poirot. It doesn't work, but Tony Randall, Robert Morley,
okay,
Anita Ekberg, Lawrence P. Bachman Productions, and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, British Studios, 1965.
That seems like an odd thing for this show to get wrong.
Yeah. It was turned more into a comedy, kind of like the first movie version of Casino Royale with David Niven.
Right. Okay.
It was based on the ABC murders. And the problem was that at the time that the movie was made, ABC Cinemas was a major chain in Britain. And the title was changed to The Alphabet Murders from the ABC murders in order to avoid offending the theater chain, or possibly even going so far as to refuse to screen the movie. Now, the film features also an uncredited cameo by Margaret Rutherford as Miss Marple, and Margaret Rutherford had previously appeared as Miss Marple in a series of 4 films produced by MGM between 1961 and 64. And this movie, The Alphabet Murders, was the only movie in which the characters Poirot, Tony Randall, and Miss Marple, Margaret Rutherford, appeared together. And when Poirot and Miss Marple encounter each other, the famous theme from her films can be heard. And she claims that the answer to the killings that he's investigating is as simple as ABC, the original title of the story.
Like I said, that seems like an odd thing for this show to get wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
Because they're usually so...
Yeah, even if they have to stretch a point to make a connection between a movie and the episode, they will do that. But in this case, it's pretty straightforward. So, yeah.
He could have even just said, it was never made into a movie under that name, but it was there was, I don't know, they could have maybe not as long an explanation, but given that explanation, right?
Right.
But yeah, that's weird. So he does say it's based on an Agatha Christie novel in which A kills B in order to divert suspicion from killing C. And I think that's actually been adapted a couple of other times in other ways, because and it's not coming to me at the moment, but there's a more recent film where that was a thing that happened as well. And obviously it was kind of more of an adaptation as opposed to a direct version of the story. But anyway, yeah, Steele, he says because he has no motive to kill B, then it would be difficult. The police would attempt to link the two deaths, and they can't, and that would mean A gets away with murder. Oh, I remember. It was there was a film recently, sorry, and the name is escaping me, but Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it, and it was not murder, but it was The Revenge Plot, I think it was called, or something like that. And it was two characters that have been wronged. It was in a high school. They've been wronged by various people, and so they team up and they basically offer to get revenge on the other person, on the other person's person or whatever, right? And that way nobody would be able to tie them officially back to the revenge because it wasn't them doing it. If that makes sense.
Was it The Grudge?
No, that was a horror movie.
Okay. All right.
This is it was recent. It came out in like 2023. And it was basically one character had an issue with some characters at her school, and so the other girl, who they didn't go in the same circles, and so they offered to take care of each of their problems for each other. But it's obviously the same idea, because if it's tied back to them, then they would have no motive. So, but it wasn't murder. It was just like, team thing. But yeah, she concludes that the next step would be to figure out which of these men was the intended victim. She realizes that she hasn't seen the fifth bachelor yet, Arnold Baskin, because she had to talk to the police, and then the hospital called. She attempts to call him, but his phone is busy. Steele assures her that at least that she knows that he's at home, and she decides that she has to warn him. So she goes to leave, and Steele cautions her to stay away from lemon chicken. She comes back, she kisses his forehead, but before she can pull away, he puts his hand on her face and assures her that he never invited Millicent to spend the night. She says they'll talk about it later. So I don't know, maybe he's taking Mildred's advice to heart now, but it feels weird that he kissed her the way that he did before he got hit by the car. As Laura's leaving, she runs into Millicent with the tea. She tells him she has to go out for a couple of hours. She tells her where the pain pills are, reminds her to wake him, and if she can't, call an ambulance. Millicent frets about how there's so much to remember, and Laura tells her that she can do it, adding to stay close to him, but not too close before leaving. I can't tell if Millicent really is dumb or if she's playing a part.
You know,
I think she is dumb. I think the conclusion that we arrive at is that she's, I don't know. What do you think?
I ultimately kind of wound up leaning that direction too. But initially I was kind of I was leaning more toward the side of she's really not that dumb. She's playing the dumb blonde because that allows her to do what she wants to without people taking her seriously or suspecting her because she's just too dumb to do this sort of thing. You know, it's one of those things where you play into somebody's stereotypes because you're letting them see what they want to see. And by doing that, you're diverting their attention from something else that you're actually doing behind the scenes or in the background that, you don't want them to fight about.
It's kind of like with Dolly Parton. When someone called her a dumb blonde, she said it doesn't bother her because she's not dumb and she's not blonde.
Yeah. So
funny.
That was my initial thought. But I think by the time we get to the end of it, I'm still going to say she's not maybe quite as dumb as she puts on, but I'm not going to give her credit for intelligence that she doesn't have.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. So we get Laura showing up at Baskin's. He's sleeping. Janoff is in the room. He sneaks up to him, grabs a pillow. He intends to strangle him when the doorbell rings. He drops his pillow as Baskin stirs and goes to hide in the closet. Baskin wakes up and goes to answer it. And I have a couple of questions about this, which I'll get to at the end of the episode. But Laura apologizes for waking him. He immediately puts his arm around her. She tells him the truth very bluntly. He simply says, "This kind of news calls for a drink." She asks if there is any connection, no matter how vague, between the Bachelors, and Baskin says his law firm has as a department that specializes in sports figures. And of course, when he turns on the stereo, it is Vivaldi. So,
yep.
These guys,
it must be a
they're
rule.
Like,
when you're trying to seduce a woman,
they all have, they all have a copy of The Prophet. They all listen to Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and they all have these bottles of wine that are specifically bottled in small quantities.
Yes.
But these are all like these generic things that they think makes them in some way, I guess, seductive or appealing, but in reality just makes them look like arrogant jerks. Like, he
Desperate,
turns down the
arrogant
lights.
Jerks.
I love her. Yeah, I love her response here. She rolls her eyes because she knows what's coming, right? Like, this is Chip Carstairs all over again. She asks if Butch was a client. Baskin says that he was, and he was about to pay off handsomely. He offers her a glass of wine again, despite the fact that she said no only a couple seconds ago. Gives her the same spiel that Carstairs did about a wine being bottled in small quantities and only for something special.
Yeah. Oh, only this vintner's in Mendocino.
Oh yeah. It's all like, it's special. Like,
yes.
Sure. Okay.
Just for you.
I bet he's lying. I bet this is one of those ones that comes out of a cardboard box. It's a cardboardo.
Heiny whiny.
Yeah, exactly, right? Laura asks how Butch was going to pay off. Baskin starts touching her face in a super creepy way, saying that Janoff didn't have the bucks to pay Butch and that Butch was going to become a free agent. He'd even given Janoff a letter of intent. Laura asks about the significance of this, and instead of answering her, he tells her a disturbing story. This is where things get real weird with this dude, okay? Like, real weird.
I want to seduce you, so I'm going to tell you about atomic bombs.
What? When the bombs of Hiroshima fell, the shadows of people who were vaporized were etched permanently into the concrete. This is supposed to be romantic?
I guess.
What? I'll give him points for originality, I suppose. But
I've been doing it wrong all these years?
Yeah, clearly. You should have started talking about the bodies of vaporized victims of a nuclear attack. Clearly that was the appropriate hit. Like, what?
I could have done so much better in high school and college.
You could have. You just had to work on your nuclear love pickup lines.
That's right. And get some wine from exclusive little vintners that
exclusively bottled vintners. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he goes into the other room. He sprays his breath. I don't think that's his problem, but hey, Laura follows him, saying that she's trying to keep him alive and asking for a sporting chance. He puts his arm around her, sits him down on the bed, and tells her that the letter meant that Butch was free to look into other teams, leaving Janoff without a star player. He then asks if she sees the implications, and he says, if nuclear war comes, and adds it could come at any time, imagine the two of them locked together in those final moments, their deaths bittersweet, by their bodies intertwined together for all eternity.
On a wall?
Seduction technique ever. Yeah. That is a good response. Like, and Arnold just urges her to think of it. I gotta wonder how many times this has worked for him, because it has to have worked at least once for him. This sounds well rehearsed.
That's something that I thought of when I was watching this and hearing his line and everybody using the same lines over and over again, variations of the same lines. Is that
like
they're playing the numbers game, If you throw a dart often enough, eventually you're going to hit the board, and eventually you're going to get the bullseye. And that's what they're doing. They're just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, throwing a bunch of mud at the wall, hoping that eventually they hit the target. And as they do it often enough over the period of a week, a month, whatever, they're going to have success.
I got to wonder who this works on. I want to see the woman that this nuclear strategy works on, because she needs some therapy. Is my train of thought here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Arnold urges her to think of it. Laura rolls away off the bed, says she would rather think of Janoff's motive, adding that with Butch dead, he has nothing. Arnold says, well, if you call $5 million nothing. She sits back down on the bed, and Arnold tells her that he had a life insurance policy on Butch and that it's common when you have a piece of merchandise that valuable to insure it. And he starts touching her again at this point, which implies that Laura obviously would be a piece of merchandise to him. Not shocking, as it seems like that's how all of these men see women, which makes them all super, super, super gross. Laura is satisfied that she has a motive for Butch, and Arnold asks, what about the other three? Laura tells him it's as simple as ABC, tells him to lock his windows. She gets up to leave. And then he follows her yelling, where are you going? We were just getting into the significance of nuclear love.
Yep.
The fact that he thought at this point he still had a chance is ballsy. I'll give him that. Like,
desperate.
He thought he was still in the game. Yeah. He comes back into the bedroom, notices the windows aren't. Yeah. And these men are all. I mean, this is a stereotype. We're looking at serious stereotypes here of men all in very sort of high-powered, successful positions who assume that because they can get anybody they want.
But it's a stereotype because they're out there. These are stereotypes, but they're
for sure
real people. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a tiny grain of truth in any stereotype. There's always that arrogant jerk who thinks that he can have any woman he sets his eyes on. And in
this one, I think it's a whole shovel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He comes back to the bedroom, notices the windows are indeed open, and shuts them. And then we've got Laura comes back into Steele's apartment and hears some very weird noises coming from his room.
Shades of love among the Steele.
It sounds like groaning and moaning, but very strange. It doesn't sound like love, though. Like this is if it's love, I don't know what I don't want to know what you're into. You know what? You do you. But that sounded painful. And obviously she initially assumes it's him and Millicent and starts to leave, only to come back in furious and ready to confront him. She storms into his bedroom only to see the noises are coming from his TV. And it looks like he's watching, I'm assuming, Tarzan?
That's the speculation that I saw on the Facebook group. And
okay, yeah.
I skimmed through some of the Tarzan movies I could find on YouTube from that black and white era. And I didn't spot anything that looked like that particular scene. But like I said, I was just skimming through them. So it could very well be. There wasn't enough there on the screen to really tell.
So, I mean, no, but I mean, that would be, which is good because those would not be good sounds to make while doing the other thing. So I'm glad that it was, in fact, Tarzan.
Well,
he's fast asleep. She turns off the TV, which jolts him awake. He tells her he took a pain pill. He asks where Millicent is. He says that, she asked where Millicent is, and he says he sent her home and she couldn't make tea worth a damn. He asks where she's been, and she tells him about getting the goods on the murderer. He says, who done it? And she tells him Victor Janoff. She tells him about the letter of intent, and he points out that if he's clever to do all this, he's clever enough to destroy the letter. So he's right. She says, not necessarily. And when he asks why not, she says, because then we can't prove he's a killer. So, I mean, true. Not really
I'm
helpful.
Sorry. That's not very logical.
No. He can't have destroyed it because then we got nothing,
Yeah.
So this is where Steele references Rear Window and says that she knows that was made into a movie. He then quotes James Stewart, Grace Kelly, Paramount 1954, and describes a plot involving Jimmy Stewart having a broken leg and passing the time watching his neighbors. He eventually comes to believe that one is a killer. When the killer figures out what he's doing, he tries to kill him too. Steele thinks the best approach is to call Janoff and tell him that he has a witness who saw him kill Dr. Ridley at the stables and someone who saw him rig the hot tub and try to run him down. So he's just going to come straight out and say it.
See, we've located 3 witnesses already, and we haven't even left the apartment.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. He phones, Janoff answers. He asks if he's surprised to hear from him, and Janoff says he'd be surprised to hear from anyone at that hour, which is a good line. He asks how his legs and his ribs are, and Steele says broken. He says, shouldn't you be trying to get as much rest as possible? To which Steele replies, what would you say if I said I had a witness that says they saw you kill Dr. Ridley? Janoff looks a little unnerved and says that he doesn't have the vaguest idea what he's talking about, and he suspects neither does he before he hangs up.
Shouldn't the fact that he knew what injuries Steele had have kind of caught somebody's attention at this point? I mean, it should have been a clue for Laura, at least.
You would think, because it would mean that he was there, and neither one of them really thinks about this. Well, I guess maybe later, because they've already decided he's the killer, right? Yeah, and I guess if they've already decided he's the killer, then it makes sense that he would know about his injuries. So, yeah.
Well, that's true.
Laura suggests plan B, which is to sneak into Janoff's apartment and find the letter, which is this just me or is this a terrible plan? Like, Steele has already pointed out that the letter has likely been destroyed. And if you sneak in, why wouldn't you at least wait until Janoff leaves the apartment? Because Steele points out that he just woke the man up, and Laura says he has to sleep sometime. Like, okay, but maybe don't sneak into an apartment with a man who has killed already and is there.
Yeah.
On your own. With no backup.
It's not exactly her most brilliant plan. I'll say that, yes.
No, it's definitely not. And Steele can't come with her. So, yeah, like maybe wait till he at least leaves. Like, stake the place out, wait till you see him go the next day, and then have a look through his apartment because they know he's there already.
Right.
So, anyway, she decides to go there, sneaks into his apartment, turns on her flashlight, and she is shocked to find he's dead with a gun next to him, which looks like a suicide. So... he's out, which is, again, kind of interesting because it's the first time we've seen an episode where we know who the killer is, and then the killer is subsequently killed by another killer who we maybe don't know that there's So this next scene is hilarious. Didn't have a clue at this point
that there was more than that. It was a party game.
Yeah. But this next scene, this is funny. He's in his apartment. He's using a broom. He's trying to get a wine glass down from the little thing it's hanging on. It falls. So he keeps going, breaking wine glass after wine glass after wine glass.
And did you notice how much glass there is on the floor around him?
So he had obviously already broken a few, and he's determined to get that glass of wine. I guess he's refusing to drink it in a styrofoam cup. I don't know, but it's pretty funny that he's destroying his entire collection of wine glasses just to get one off with the broom. Yeah. She comes in. She asks what he's doing. He wants to celebrate with champagne, claiming it's not often that they solve a case by a phone call. Laura asks if he means Janoff's suicide, and Steele concludes that obviously they pushed him over the edge. Laura isn't so sure she buys it. She grabs the 2 remaining glasses that are not smashed and hands them to him. He tells her to wash it down with this and pours her a glass. She points out that he didn't ask any questions about the witness, such as who it was or why they hadn't come forward before. And Steele says that he was found with a gun in his hand, which is not exactly a puzzling mystery. She insists that there's something missing and says that he says that she has an annoying habit of not letting things go, like a bulldog terrier, which is kind of funny. She then asks herself if Janoff is beneficiary to a $5 million policy, then who is Janoff's beneficiary? He pretends he's been asking himself the same question. And as she leaves, she jostles his toe. Kind of mean. The man's got a broken leg. Like, ouch.
Well, it's almost like she reached down to kind of pinch it or tickle it or something. But not a very nice move.
So Laura goes to Victor's house again, finds Mariah Taylor there, looking through Janoff's safe. She asks what she's looking for and implies that it's the same thing that he was. Mariah says, I doubt that, and Laura quickly surmises that they were more than editor and publisher. Mariah confirms that Janoff didn't want to look like he started a magazine for his girlfriend, but as soon as it was successful, then they were supposed to be married. She says that now all she has is his promise that if something were to happen, she'd be taken care of. Laura states that she's the beneficiary, and Mariah defensively says that he didn't have any friends or family, so why shouldn't she get everything? Which isn't really how things work, but okay. Laura mentions the $5 million life insurance policy just as Mariah finds something, but it's not the policy. She calls him a rotten, two-faced slimeball. Laura snatches the document from her only to find out that Victor and Millicent were married secretly. Bum, bum, bum. The plot thickens. Mariah is furious. She says that he strung her along for 8 years and then married that pom-pom girl. She asks, what am I supposed to do now? I'm 36 years old, then corrects it to 32, which is, it's funny because I actually... Sorry, go ahead.
Is that 4 years? Does anybody really care about those 4 years other than her?
Well, it's funny because I looked it up and the actress is 32. So, yeah, I guess I don't know why I found that funny, but I was like, I want to know how old she actually is. And I looked it up and the actress was 32 at the time. So there we go. I guess that 4 years does matter to her. But so Laura asks if she happened to see an insurance policy on Butch, but Mariah's too upset to hear her, so she asks again. She tells her that if anything had to do with the hockey team, it will be at the arena, and then goes back to pacing, saying that without Victor's backing, she's going to be walking the streets after the magazine folds. She says she'll kill him, and Laura says, sorry, Mariah, Millicent beat you to that too.
That was a bit mean.
That was smug.
That was a bit mean.
That was smug. That was kind of like... that's what I had in my notes. I was like, she seems pretty happy about that. Like, I mean, I know neither one of... I don't think Mariah is necessarily a wonderful human being, given how cavalier she was about all the bachelors being killed. But at the same time, like, this poor woman's just been devastated. I don't know. It seems like a kind of a dig.
Mean. Very mean.
Yeah. So we go to the arena. She breaks into Victor's office, rifles through his desk, finds nothing, attempts to open the filing cabinet, only to hear the door being opened, so she hides behind a wall, and Arnold Baskin walks in. He goes over to the filing cabinet and searches it until he finds a file. He pulls it out, walks over to a mirror where he's about to look at it. Instead, he sees Laura in the mirror. She runs for the door, but he blocks her and tells her that she doesn't stop running from him. She's going to get the feeling that she doesn't, or sorry, if she doesn't stop running from him, he's going to get the feeling she doesn't enjoy his company. She says she doesn't want to interrupt whatever it is he's doing, and he grabs her, basically, walks her over to the filing cabinet, adding that he's always found women accommodating. Laura asks if he and Fairbush were engaging in nuclear love, and he says that she is so energetic. Ugh. So Millicent's getting around, and here, I guess, brings me to my question. So he and Millicent are clearly in on it together, but Janoff almost killed him. So did Janoff and Millicent plan this together, and then she went behind his back and brought Arnold into it, or how did that work?
That's a good question. Let's see. So
because
Janoff
Arnold
is
was
trying
almost
to kill
a victim.
Arnold. Right. Well, maybe Millicent is just, maybe she's a lot smarter than we give her credit for, because either way she wins. Maybe
this comes back to the question of, was she dumber? Yeah, that's true.
Because either way she wins,
that's
because
true.
if Janoff kills off Butch and all the rest of the bachelors, she's still got Janoff and whatever money he has, and then of course she could kill him. Or she could just let him go to jail, in which case she would take over control because she's his wife, and so naturally it would fall to her. Or if Arnold kills Janoff, then she still inherits, and she wins either way.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess
maybe she's not as dumb as we
she is a little
thought.
smarter than we gave her credit for. Yeah. So Laura says she was also the only one able to get close enough to Janoff to shoot him point blank, that nobody would suspect a ditzy cheerleader. He says that Millicent's deficiencies have their advantages, and Laura says she should have realized that Millicent needed someone to plan it. So they're still assuming that Millicent isn't all that bright, but you're right. Like, she probably was playing them both, right? He adds that it was quite a good plan, unaware that she is using him for information. He adds that all the evidence points to Janoff as a killer, and with their help and expert sleuthing, he points out that it'll look like Janoff was hounded by Steele into committing suicide, and Laura adds leaving the grieving widow to collect. Baskin says only as soon as he rectifies a technicality, adding that she isn't the brightest lady. As Laura pointed out, she mistakenly signed a prenup, which limited the amount she could get from Janoff. Would that count in life insurance as well? The man's dead.
Well,
I thought prenups only counted for divorce.
I looked that up because I had that same question. And
okay.
what I found was that prenups can include any portion of the estate or anything that would be typically inherited by somebody, because the prenups can actually include death circumstances. So I didn't think so either. But yeah, when I looked it up, it was like, oh, really? Seriously? You can have a prenup that covers the death of the principal, and
that seems kind of petty.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Ouch.
So,
yeah. All right.
I guess if you really want to stick it to somebody.
Yeah. Well, maybe don't marry them if you're going to go that far.
There's that too. Yeah. I mean, if you've already decided that you need to plan for failure of your marriage and relationship, it's probably not going to work out in the long run. Yeah.
Yep. He scrunches it up, saying that once it's destroyed, he will be what he's always wanted to be, a mogul. Okay, another question. Wouldn't the lawyers for Janoff's estate have a copy of a prenup?
One would think.
Yeah, okay. So maybe Mr. Baskin is not the smartest tool in the shed.
Or
That's
maybe he'd already arranged to have that copy destroyed.
Maybe. And he is supposed to be, he's the lawyer, right? So I guess maybe he drew it up. So yeah, okay. Arnold picks up the phone, commands her to get Steele over there. Laura says that he doesn't know anything about Millicent or Arnold, and he laughs and says, "You expect me to believe that you're aware of something the great Remington Steele isn't?" Ouch.
Right? You're obviously just an errand girl.
Okay, that's literally... I wrote, he adds that she's... Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and she... Yeah, not impressed. Not impressed. No. Yeah. Steele is throwing the cards into a hat. When the phone rings, he rolls the wheelchair over to answer with some difficulty.
From steel framed?
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is her hat. When he answers the phone, Laura is extremely formal with him, the way an employee would speak to their boss, right? She gives both her first and last name and calls him Sir, asking him to come to the arena. Steele says that he is somewhat incapacitated at the moment. She says it can't be helped, sir, which obviously... her hand starts making its way to the letter opener. He asks her if someone is there, noting that she sounds formal. She says no and stabs Baskin with the letter opener and makes a run for it. And this brings us to one of the funniest bits of physical comedy. It's just hilarious.
And
frantically trying to roll himself out of that apartment.
My understanding is that much of the physical comedy here was Brosnan's idea. Maybe not all of it. And that's another thing I wanted to check in the script, if we could get a later version that was closer to the version shot, how much of it was scripted in this. But I understand at least the fight with the ficus was Brosnan's idea.
Oh, that was funny. That was good. And here's my question. He grabs the keys to the Auburn. Was he planning to drive with his leg? And why not just call Fred? Pick up the phone, call Fred. Fred takes him to do crime. Surely he, I guess. So yeah, I don't know how he was planning to drive with his leg in a cast, but the fight with the ficus is really funny. That is a good moment. He opens the door to find Millicent there. He asks him to get her to the car, not realizing obviously she's the danger. Meanwhile, Basket is still chasing Laura through the arena. She has to double back and ends up in the stands. She throws her purse down the stairs and goes up to the upper level. Baskin comes in, sees the purse, and goes down, which is smart. Meanwhile, Steele and Millicent are arriving in the Auburn with his legs sticking out of the car. Funny. It's quite funny. It's very, very funny image. Laura's in the rafters watching Baskin look for her in the stands. We then switch back to Steele, who's only now realizing that the car that ran them down didn't follow them, that it was parked there and waiting. So this is where he's cluing into the fact that there's more than one person involved in this. Mm-hmm. She wheels him into the stands as he keeps talking, wondering how Janoff knew his exact injuries when the only people who knew were the doctor, Laura, him, and Millicent. Again, this is one of those moments where, again, if they already had decided he was the killer, so that would make perfect sense. But I guess they had to remind the audience of that because this is where we're supposed to get the penny drop that she's in on it too.
Well,
that we already know that.
Thinking about it,
Yeah.
Thinking about it, Janoff would know that Steele had been injured and was in the hospital, but he wouldn't know the specifics. Broken rib, broken leg.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So,
that's true. Now we're back to where we started.
So, yeah.
Boy, it's been a ride. Yeah, you're right.
Boy, you really are smart, Remy.
But this is where, that's where the penny drops. And he says it's not the most eloquent confession, but he'll accept it. She says so much for lasting relationships and then adds, bye-bye, Remy, before attempting to dump him down the stairs, which is funny. Laura swings on a rope very much the same way Steele did in Scene Stealers, and hits Millicent before she can hurt him. Steele says, "That's my girl," which is really quite cute, and then urges her to get up. Meanwhile, Baskins found them and runs up the stairs towards them. But in her fight with Millicent, Laura accidentally knocks him down the stairs, poor guy, and he hits Baskin and falls out of the wheelchair. Laura kicks Millicent and then punches her out, which is quite funny, and then does the thing where she shakes her hand, right? Because of course you have to.
Yep.
Poor Steele. He now has 2 broken legs. Yes. Laura's bringing him something to read, some candy, some flowers. She apologizes to him for breaking his other leg. He says it's fine because she saved his life and broke his limb, which is kind of cute. Yeah. She insinuates it's poetic justice for carrying on with Millicent and Mariah. I'm not sure that is correct. Yeah, I don't think that it really deserved broken bones, but yeah. He says it's all behind them now, and he just wants to stay home with that special someone. Laura says, when you find her, give her my best. She gets up to leave, and he asks where she's going. She replies that Mariah has chosen another set of bachelors, and she asks Laura to check them out and see if they're all right. She tells him not to wait up and blows him a kiss, and poor guy is left staring at his feet.
Why do I have the feeling she's going to check them out in more ways than one? Or she at least wants Steele to believe that she will be.
Yeah. Maybe she's going to read the prophet first.
Anyway.
But I do, the last shot of this episode of him staring at his feet, I will say from the perspective of just the visuals, that's a good shot. I really like that shot.
Yeah.
So yeah. I gotta say overall, I enjoy the episode. It's certainly not a terrible episode, but I definitely don't think it's very consistent in some ways.
Yeah, it has issues. It's kind of like the last one. I mean, we have issues with it. It's a good episode, but yeah, we have issues. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we enjoyed ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's on the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, we've got show notes, links to Amazon US, Amazon Canada. There is merch that you can have a look at, and as well as other ways to support us. So check that out. There are also social media resources and links such as
the links to the official Steele Watching Facebook, the official Steele Watching Twitter, and the official Steele Watching Instagram, as well as the official, unofficial Steele fan group, Steele Watchers.
Yeah.
Did I say enough officials?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think you got it.
Okay.
And our next episode is High Flying Steele, not to be confused with Steele Flying High.
Yes. I don't know
the
why
circus
they did that. It's just too confusing.
It's very confusing. I mix them up all the time. Yeah.
Yes. But yes, it's a good one. It's coming up.
I enjoy it. It is a good one. We get a lot of fun from the cast. So,
okay.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for us for now, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.